Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you today. My name is Dustin. You're watching another episode of Howtorockastrology. Today's episode, we're going to be digging through what it's like when you have Natal Venus in the sign of Aries. This is an interesting placement. Ultimately, I would say, I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer, so I'm combining my Vedic philosophy and Jyotish knowledge with what is given with Western measurements. I'm still a Western-based astrologer, but I've been applying Vedic Jyotish to my understanding of things. And I'm really there. I'm really steeped in the Vedic thing, but I measure using Western measurements, tropical measurements. So, if you're a Westerner and you have Venus in Aries, then you're in the right place. Although anybody with sidereal Venus in Aries can also get something out of this video. Venus in Aries, by my regard, is good because it's still in very close proximity to Venus's exaltation point in Pisces, although it has gone past that point. So it's moving towards Virgo, which is kind of ill, but it's close enough to Pisces that it still has this one-pointed, single-pointed focus on what love is really supposed to be, which is a soul-bound connection. So it's close to Pisces, which is good. Very close. It's, right next door. But it is in the sign of Aries, and Vedic astrology considers that it's very important for every planet by sign to be in good stead with the dispositor of that sign, the lord of the sign. Because that's like, Venus is a gardener, and you want it to be in a place that's conducive to gardening. Now, I think a lot of Western astrologers think that this is like a bad placement for Venus because Mars is such a warrior planet. In a way, Venus in Aries has this warrior attitude, but Mars is neutral to Venus. It's neither a friend nor an enemy, according to Vedic astrology. So this goes to show that really it'll be much easier for this Venus. The logic is that Venus is supposed to be a receptive planet. How do you attract people? And how do you attract people who appreciate who you are? You have a certain way of getting affection everybody's got a certain way of gaining affection through their Venus. And they attract qualities in others who would appreciate what you put out through your Venus. Venus is a two-way street in a certain way. And this Venus attracts through the propulsion of Mars, through the kind of pushy, sort of like almost a conquestish, even competitive edge. But this is a Venus that this competition is an internal thing that it does for itself. It's not quite the same as, like Venus in Scorpio can be a bit more pushy. It's a little bit closer to Virgo. This Venus in Aries, being so close to Pisces, is not trying to compete with others necessarily for any other reason than it's trying to just do what its soul wants. It wants to connect with others in the soul. And if you have a well-placed Mars, you will intrinsically know how to compete and push for things so that Venus doesn't get caught up in it. If you have a Mars exalted, or if it's in its own sign, even if it's here with Venus, that'll put a little extra fiery edge. But at least Mars will be in its own sign. Although that would add some pushiness to the Venus that's malefic and not necessarily good. But ultimately, if Mars is well placed, if it's exalted, if it has benefic aspects, or if it's got aspects from its friends, which is the Sun and Jupiter, and I think also the Moon, then this Mars, there's many things just outside of the signs that give our planet strength or weakness. If Mars is well placed, you will instinctively know how to, win, or at least put across the attitude of winning the long haul, which means not necessarily winning every battle, but a true sportsman can lose a fight, can lose a lover to another lover, and say, good, that was me sharpening my sword. That's me brandishing and sharpening my sword. I can take the loss, and move forward. Other planets might be extra pushy about this, but Venus is a receptive planet. It wants to move through competition almost. Even when it loses, it's considering that to be getting closer to what the place it wants to be, especially if Mars is well placed and if this Venus is also well placed and has other positive things to it. Ultimately, if your Venus has aspects from friends, has benefic aspects, as a trine from Jupiter, if it's got strength in Shadbala and other things that Vedic astrology describes, then this is a Venus that will ultimately have security. It'll understand what Venus is. It'll know how to share itself with others in a relationship way, so you don't actually have to fight to keep your lover. If this Venus is very ill-placed, and especially if Mars is also ill-placed, then you will feel like you need to fight to keep your lover because you got with them out of your ability to put in effort and fight to keep them, which means those who live by the sword die by the sword, and relationships that live by the sword die by the sword. If you go into a relationship from Venus's pure essence, then your competitive nature is something that your lover will appreciate, as aside from the fact that you guys are bonded at the soul. You guys have things that you're living for. This Venus knows this. It's close to Pisces, which means it knows that it really wants to align itself at the sentimental level with someone who can give it joyous memories, who can enjoy the journey together towards whatever it is that you're doing in your life. The moon and Venus is kind of like what we are and who we're with at the end of the day. The sun and Mars and Jupiter are about what you're doing from 9 to 5, pushing to get your career bigger and these sorts of things. If you have a well-placed Venus, which it is here, this Venus has the ability to understand that a lover is something that needs to be with you whether you're trying hard or not. It's a funny thing, but basically this is what it is. Any good Venus knows that to work smarter, not harder. Where you can just flick your wrist, or it's the way you drink your coffee. It's the music that you listen to. It's the things that you just do unconsciously because you enjoy them. That's your water. And if someone connects with your Venus at that water level, then they are going to drink your water and be satisfied by it. Venus is about mutual benefit. And the benefit that you give is the benefit that you get. Venus being close to Pisces here shows that you probably will instinctively move towards someone who feels like a good soul partner for you. Then all the competitive stuff of like trying to have things that impresses your lover is just fun things that your lover enjoys for its own sake. Ultimately, if you have a well-placed Mars, then you'll have a competitive pushiness with others, just with any regard. You'll be into sports, so you'll be into your job, or you'll talk about things in a pushy way that your lover will appreciate, and they'll appreciate you for it. They meet you at Venus, and then the competition isn't about holding the relationship together. The competition is you and the world around you, which your partner will find cute. Right? I hope I've made that distinction clear. Ultimately, Venus is still in the sign of a neutral zone here. Aries is Lord, Mars is neutral to Venus. And so Mars's placement will show whether you feel good in this competitiveness that you're trying to be appreciated for. Mars's placement will show you whether you feel natural, competing with others, being a sort of like instigating person who instigates and pushes through the difficulties in your life. And this will, again, gain more appreciation because Venus wants to be appreciated for what it is and what it's naturally doing and wherever it is. Thankfully, Venus being in Aries does something for Aries just as much as Aries does something for Venus. So Venus being here, you've probably nurtured a competitiveness all your life. And this helps Mars. Mars is channeling everything that's in Aries. By having a benefic planet there, Mars will be guided to feel good about being a sportsman person who is kind of competitive, but enjoying competition for its own sake, right? If Mars is not well placed, it means that you're still going to be a competitive person, but it means that there are things that have blocked you from fully flowering in your competitiveness, and you might feel insecure, like you put out as you want to be someone who has a competitive energy and a lusty, blooming, fiery sort of energy, and you love what you love very deeply. And if you want to be the person who's appreciated for these things, but you might have other things that cause you to not have that in the fullest stock that you would like. Typically, Venus can still, if you attract a partner, if you've got, Venus and the moon are both the arbiters of the Svadhisthana chakra, the second chakra. That's the water chakra. And if either your Venus or your moon has something of value for your partner and you can share it, and then they will be with you and they will have what they need from you. If your Mars is weak, it just means that you won't feel like you are doing what you want to do to satisfy your partner, even though your partner could just say, baby, it's good, I love you, we're living for each other. Because ultimately, Jupiter is the true planet in the 9th house. These are the true arbiters of marriage. Venus is just our enjoyment. The 7th house is our enjoyment that we get out of a relationship. The 9th house in Jupiter shows that we're living for something deeper than the personality dynamics. But our personality dynamics are valuable. It makes the relationship easier. And Venus, being this close to Pisces, can understand the importance of supporting the other person. Because Venus and Aries, being so close to Pisces, it ultimately wants to win at its relationship. It wants to do what it wants to do in its life and to be supported in that. So it's like in the placement of a war general. And you know that your soldiers will listen to you better if you give them what they want. If you push them for 3 weeks to go out and march around, and on the 4th week, all right, everybody, we're going to get a few people to guard the barracks, and we're going to have a drink, and we're going to have a party, and we're going to chill out so that we can go and be better in 2 days once we've all been hungover. 2 days after that, we're going to march on and keep doing the hard thing. A good general knows to give its soldiers this in order to make them easy and feel like the general loves them and is listening to them. You might treat your partner in this sort of same way. Ultimately, the Venus is close enough to Pisces that it's not just a false altruism. You want to treat your partner well because you know that that's what's functional in a relationship, essentially, right? Venus in Aries is in a neutral dignity. Venus is neutral, Mars is neutral to Venus. So what I've written as my own note here is that you will use action, passion, and initiative to impress partners and to sustain relationships. This is something that you can deeply enjoy, where you're doing it all the time. You're doing these things to impress your partner. If Mars is weak, then this could ultimately be exhausting. It's like you have to keep up this thing, and it's like, like something that you got to keep up, whereas because you want to be appreciated for it. If you have a strong Mars, then you have this thing that is just that you do naturally, and you'll be appreciated for it. This competitive edge pushes you to fight for relationships that functionally align with your soul. And because it's closer to Pisces, again, you don't chase unrealistic fantasies, and your relationship encourages a bird's eye view of your true soul needs over time. Being close to Pisces means that Venus is open to whatever's all around it. Venus in Virgo doesn't think about love enough. It doesn't think about how to enjoy itself in love. It doesn't think of the importance in love. And so it looks for somebody who they idealize as meeting them at their lack of wanting to really care. And they find partners and they always get it mixed up. They look on the outside and dodge everything on the outside until they find something that seems to be perfect on the outside, and then they find that the inside is never what it is on the outside. When Venus is closer to Pisces, Venus accepts whatever's on the outside, moves through all the superficial dimensions of personality if they feel like there's a connection with the person at a soul level. And then all the things that happen in the relationship, all the fights, all the disagreements, when the person doesn't like the same food as you and you're like, damn, I really wanted to go to an Indian restaurant. You tell me you don't like Indian food? Mars and Aries is not going to care about that, really. As if the person is ultimately the same competitive spirit, the same enjoyable person who likes to laugh at things and be sort of blunt and sort of edgy sometimes, then it's not going to matter that there's complications in the relationship. You, in fact, will be willing to work on those things, ultimately. Especially if Venus is well placed and the moon is well placed. Again, this is just by sign. There's so much more to these planets than to all planets than just their sun sign, or just the sign that they're in. I'm encouraging people, just like, you know, everybody is in the astrology world, has been encouraging people to get out of the cookbook consciousness and to see, you know, you can't appreciate an ingredient like an onion or thyme or whatever by themselves. You can, just that's why we're doing this video. You know, I'm explaining to you what onion and what thyme are, but ultimately these things don't matter when you throw them into the stew, because then the onion is blended with the thyme and with the lemon and with all the other things. It's still useful to know, at least for the sake of YouTube, for the sake of something to do, to understand what the planet is by its sign. Just always remember there's so much more to it. Now, I've given my little spiel. Now we're going to move through some Western author texts to kind of get more of a perspective on the personality of Venus and Aries. This first one's going to come from Stephen Arroyo's Chart Interpretation Handbook. This is Venus in the sign of Aries. Remember, Stephen Arroyo tells us is that the sign position of Venus shows how one expresses affection, feels appreciated, and gives of self. This is interpretive guidelines for Venus and Aries. Venus in Aries expresses affection directly, impulsively, and enthusiastically. Seeks a partner who kind of caters to that. These people have emotionally charged, emotionally colored tastes and pleasures that blossom when energy is directed towards new experiences. Especially, they enjoy the first stages of relationships, for better or worse. Ultimately, what ends up happening is that they find new ways to keep the relationship exciting. And they're always changing and initiating what's going on in the relationship to switch it up and to change it. They need to feel close to another person, like all people do. And their need to feel close to another can be thwarted by strong, self-assertive, and demanding qualities. It's like certain things that you'll say, this is a demand, this is a need, I need this independence, I need this item, this emotion, or I need this to be done in this way. Intimacy, therefore, can sometimes be difficult to achieve. This is, again, most Western authors give this perspective. But ultimately, this, I think, especially if Venus is well placed and if Mars is well placed, then your partner will see that you're like this and appreciate that you're like this. But Venus, no matter what Aries has going on, no matter what Mars has going on, we all still have Venus. We have a second Svadhisthana chakra, the water chakra, and this needs to have a reciprocal value in a practical, functional relationship, which means that you need to listen to your partner and to not be obstinate about, you'll communicate what you are obstinate about, but when fights happen, you can drag it all around if you don't understand the true merging that is supposed to be happening in the relationship. Thankfully, this Venus is close enough to Pisces that you can see that you've got a partner, like a general trying to get through a war. You have to just be honest and objective about the nature of the soldiers that you're dealing with. And it's this, I've got Scorpio, Sun, and Mars. That's where I'm coming from with that. But you'll know that it's important for you to do that for your partner, to listen to what their likes are. And when you request something that you're obstinate about and they show resistance, you'll do what you can to push for your genuine needs, but you will be smart enough to see that this is a merging that needs to happen in order for ultimately this war to win for Mars, for the Aries consciousness, for you to win the conquest that is being in a deep, meaningful relationship with a soul partner. This person values individuality, initiative, and independence in self and others. Individuality would be important. Venus in Aries gives of self energetically and responds to forceful release of energy from others. So when anybody has this excitable sort of energy, like Venus and Aries people, I have a friend that has Venus and Aries, and they're like, yeah, they love that energy. They respond to it, and they get off on that same burst of energy that others can kind of give off in that way. But ultimately, the Mars, the Venus in this person is smart about the fact that, again, Venus likes to work smarter, not harder. It's an ironic thing that Venus likes to work smarter, not harder. But this is a placement of Venus that enjoys working hard. So all it means is that you've got a set amount of gunpowder, you've got to strategize where you put it, and make sure that you're not putting out more than you're regenerating, so that ultimately you don't burn yourself out by trying to do a show and dance for your partner in order to keep them. This is something that you probably instinctively understand as Venus in Aries, as someone who is not the one who needs to do a cane dance in order to keep your partner. There's the Aries instinct. That's like a Libra welcome mat personality. Venus in Aries is a bit more come hither, but while you're come hither, you do like to do things to be engaging in a fun way that you just got to strategize where you put the gunpowder. And the better placement of your Mars, the more concise and strategized and intelligent that gunpowder placement of it entertaining your lover and yourself is going to be. So this is our last reading today. It's Erotic Astrology by Phylis, Vega. Here we're talking about Venus and Aries from a sort of light-hearted, romantic interplay of energy. This is Venus and Aries in the bedroom, lovemaking sort of style, but really just the personality of Venus and Aries. With this placement of Venus, you're assertive, enthusiastic, self-expressive, creative, and cheerful. You crave excitement and adventure in all areas of your life, and sex and romance are equally important for you. However, Aries is impulsive and hopelessly addicted to conquest, while Venus falls in and out of love quickly. There's a nature of this conquest that can come in this person, especially if this Venus is afflicted. Then there's going to be a need to get to appreciate your own self and have your own self-esteem through love. And this is more in particular if the moon is not well placed. If the moon is debilitated, or if it's waning, or any of the other things that can damage the moon, then you won't feel an instinctive nature of yours to bond with people. And this is when the Venus in Aries can save it, actually. If you've got an ill moon, this Venus in Aries can save it by intrinsically having a need to show others that you have self-esteem in this putting it out there, this outgoing way. Ultimately, if it's deeply insecure, then you are going to be chasing your life, your love, your whole life. This is if you have an ill moon and Venus here that's also ill. There would be a competitiveness for others that can be gross. But ultimately, if your Venus, even if you have this position, just know that These are just astral spheres of genetic karma. And if you meditate, you can see above it and apply this competitiveness in a way that is, again, fun things that you can be appreciated for, not something to build a relationship on, right? The result of this mix of Venus and Aries is often a lack of foresight and some instability where long-term unions are concerned, at least kind of at the beginning. As time goes on, because this is close to Pisces, you ultimately begin to understand that all the frivolous connections are pissing energy away, and you want to connect functionally to relationships that actually are meaningful and work and vitalize you over time without having to put in so much effort in an extraneous way. You want to put in the right amount of effort. Venus works smarter, not harder, right? Naturally cheerful and upbeat, you exude charm and charisma in social situations. Innately daring and flirtatious, you're competitive when seeking the attention and affection of a potential lover. Because you view romantic involvement as a competition to be won, you become irritable and moody when you lose. Again, this really is the placement of Mars and Venus says a lot in this regard. It's just because you do like winning. You do like winning someone over someone else, and it's something that you can enjoy. But if there's a soul bond, you'll feel like you won them, and they'll feel like you won them, but ultimately that's a superficial flash on the surface that was really just you two bonding together at the soul level. It just so happens that you both like to win things, and that's where the connection was there. The soul connection, the entanglement of soulmateship is there first. The superficial reality is that you won. You conquested and won their love and initiated it in this sort of way. What goes ill is when it's the other way around. You win against some other people for the sake of winning, and then you get the lover, and then, well, I don't actually love them. I just wanted to win in that situation over there. And you'll probably go through a bit of that before you actually learn that that's not satisfying, right? You pursue a lover ardently and impulsively, and sometimes your initial zeal can lead you into fly-by-night affairs, kind of in the way that I just mentioned. You don't like anything that's too settled or routine, and more than anything else, you require excitement, challenge, and constant mental and physical stimulation in an intimate relationship. And ultimately, you'll make these sorts of tensions and things kind of happen in this pushy sort of fun way, no matter what, throughout your relationship. And it will just be, it's a pushy dimension of Venus, but there are always others who are also seeking that kind of vibe as well. You know, especially anybody with any fire placements, fire rising signs, fire sun signs, although you got to be careful because their sun could be trine to your Venus, which is not a good thing. It's more like Mercury in fire signs would be really nice for you, or even Saturn in fire signs. You will support these people in a very deep way, naturally, because Mercury and Saturn are friends of Venus. If another person has Jupiter in a fire sign, then they will live for the purpose of something that's fiery, or deeply for an ambitious purpose, and the competitive enjoyment of yourself will be enshrined to their Jupiter in the fire sign, right? So ultimately, there's many ways to connect with people. This is an energy that is enjoyable. The neutrality of Mars is supported by the fact that Venus is still close to its exaltation, and you can have a cool, juicy personality here. Just always keep in mind that the true nature of love is to work smarter, not harder, and to be with someone who is mutually beneficial without necessarily needing to put that much effort into it. If you don't need to put that much effort into it, then you are free to put effort into it in the way that you would like. If you have to, then it becomes a task. And that's reflected by Venus being in Virgo, right? Venus vibing with Pisces means that it's not a lot of effort. You're connected at the soul. And then whatever Venus's placement is can find that appreciation. In this case, it's putting in effort, but it's effort that you enjoy because you're bonded for reasons outside of that enjoyment. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm Dustin Cormier for Howtorockastrology. Thanks so much for watching and tuning in. Keep your eyes peeled because I've always got more stuff happening. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this. I'd love to hear your opinion. Take care, folks. Thanks so much for hanging out with me.